Lane Kiffin's got Ole Miss in a position to go make the college football playoff. And not just that, Lane Kiffin is the belle of the ball when it comes to the coaching carousel. LSU, that job just became available with the firing of Brian Kelly. Florida, that job became available with the firing of Billy Napier. And at the top of the list, you have to think for LSU and Florida, outside of hiring Marcus Freeman, I think Lane Kiffin is the number one suspect to fill both those jobs. Now, the question is, if you're Lane Kiffin, do you leave Ole Miss? We'll break it down right now. Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already. College football, nothing but college football. We will track both the openings for LSU and Florida. And if Ole Miss becomes available for Lane Kiffin leaving, we'll have thoughts on that as well. But I want to ask this question together, and we'll get Kato's thoughts on this as well throughout the course of this segment. What would you do if you're Lane Kiffin, assuming you have the pick of the Florida job, the LSU job, and the Ole Miss job? So we'll bring that man in right now. Hey, if you card once, you're going to want to card again. That's what my guy's rocking today. Producer of the Hard Count, Caden Smith. Kato, boy, you look good. You look real good, man. I'm just going to say it.
It's fall. We don't apologize for it. And happy to be playing the role of Lane Kiffin today as we make our decision as Lane's disciples. We try to be his conciliaries here.
Dude, does anybody have it better than him right now?
I mean, he's belle of the ball is almost an understatement. I think we should use like the lane of the pack, the lane of the group. We need to find a laneism to use going forward, because I think this is even bigger than being the belle of the ball. And there's still probably some more coaching jobs out there that'll open up that could even be more intriguing than these. You never know.
He's gonna be so rich.
Yeah,
he's gonna get so paid, dude.
One way or another. Whether he takes any of these jobs or stays at Ole Miss and leverages it, it's he'll be the offseason breadwinner, I think, regardless, right?
Yeah, he has to. I mean, I don't even want to know how many zeros are going to be in that bank account by the end of this thing. It's going to be he's going to be so rich. So that's out there for just the certainty of it all. We know he's going to get paid, but what job is he going to have, Caden? That's the question I want to answer right now. I want to go LSU, Florida, and Ole Miss and just kind of unpack all three of those potential options, assuming there's not a fourth option out there where there's a world, I'm sure, where Penn State takes a swing at Lane Kiffin. I don't know what world that is, but we'll unpack it if that becomes more and more likely. But with these three options, let's just go job by job, starting with LSU. I think for LSU, you don't have to project anything. You look at the last couple of coaches you've had outside of Brian Kelly, they've all won national titles. Nick Saban, Les Miles, Ed Orgeron. And if I'm Lane Kiffin, you're the team in the state being Louisiana. There's a lot of talent in that state. And there's a track record for success, plus the resources for success. And I understand there's a bit of a thought around, well, they didn't really get serious until Bryce Underwood decommitted. That happened a year ago now. Like, there's a resource pool to be drawn from for LSU. I think structurally they're set up for a lot of success. LSU, I think, is the number one job available here. I think it's more inches than feet relative to the Florida job. But it's set up for success. The GM, Austin Thomas, is awesome at his job. You got great commitment from the athletic director there. If you're LSU and you are able to grab Lane Kiffin, like, I don't want to speak too certainly because it's college football in 2025 and it'll be a 2026 season. It's going to be madness. But, like, it feels like it's everything that you need for Lane Kiffin to go win a national title. That defense, maybe Blake Baker stays there if you want to keep him around. I think they'd be a wagon. Lane Kiffin at LSU would be a home run, and you don't need to project anything if you end up taking that job to see him win a national championship.
Yeah, and I think LSU is the runaway favorite as far as the best cuisine out of all of these options. So if Lane, I know he does the hot yoga, I know he's taking good care of his body, but if he wants to just fully heel turn and go to eating a bunch of Cajun food, I think that's the best option there for sure. I think LSU and Lane is like sneakily a really good fit too. I mean, you talk about being the premier team in a state where it's literally LSU is cared about and coveted more than the professional teams. And I think the buy-in and the care factor and a little bit of the craziness from the fans and the culture there, I think it would weirdly be like almost a better fit than Florida for me for some reason from just a fan base perspective and him wanting to live up to those expectations, the very high expectations that fan base has. You mentioned the recruiting pool, that's huge. And if you just think like if you close your eyes and think about the wide receivers that have come through LSU, and then you now think about them in a Lane Kiffin offense, like the horsepower of that offense would be unbelievable. And he's familiar with that specific region too. I mean, Mississippi's not too far from LSU. So I think even that region and recruiting in there would be great. With all of these, it's the same mantra. This is a guy who has gotten some of the best players year in and year out in the transfer portal to come to Ole Miss. LSU might be the best sell out of all of these as far as getting a player from the portal to come over and be successful. I mean, they've had that track record at the quarterback position now for a couple years with a couple Heisman winners. Same with some other players across the board. But, I mean, this, from what I've heard, this is the best, like, financially backed kind of operation out of all the options so far. Apparently LSU has a little bit more resources in the NIL department than some of these other schools. So that's obviously a big time want and a big time desire for all head coaches. But man, it's LSU football, man. You don't have to sell it too much. Many people think this is the runaway favorite out of the entire market of jobs now that exist that want a new head coach. So it'll be interesting to see what Lane prefers here, but you definitely can't go wrong with the Tigers, I think.
And here's my thing too. I think the way that Brian Kelly didn't embrace Louisiana or LSU quite as much, Lane Kiffin's personality maybe doesn't suggest that he's like, you know, the most warm and fuzzy guy in the world, which is totally fine. But I think that if he goes to a place like LSU, he's going to wrap his arms around everything that LSU is. Like, I think he's done that at every stop he's been at, from what I can gather. Like Ole Miss, he talked a little bit about when he first got that job. The pace of life is a bit slower. He's trying to figure out Oxford. And then like a few years into it, he's like, I love it here. This place is awesome. Like I get it. I get their pace of life. I understand what Mississippi's about. And I think if he ended up in Louisiana, he would do that. Like Brian Kelly, it was never a matter of LSU embracing Brian Kelly. When he got there, they're like, you're going to win us football games? Cool, we're in. And then Brian Kelly doesn't really wrap his arms around Louisiana, and that thing just got a little bit weird. So I don't think, to put a finer point on this, I don't think you run into the same problem of a head coach embracing a place like you did with Brian Kelly. Also, Brian Kelly wasn't from the SEC. And I don't want to overemphasize the idea that like you have to be a culture fit to fit at LSU, but I do think you have to embrace LSU. And I think that if you're not embracing LSU, it speeds up the process of things not working out well. Now, I thought, full transparency, early on, I thought, hey, he's going to win. Cool. Like he's going to be a fit in Baton Rouge, and that ended up not being the case. But LSU would make a lot of sense for all the reasons we just mentioned there, Kato. How about Florida? A lot of ingredients there. Do you want to spit a little bit here on Florida? Just your thoughts as it pertains to Kiffin maybe being a fit there or being a guy that ends up out there in Gainesville?
Yeah, I think, like I said, like he'd be a great fit for LSU. Personally, I think he'd be a great fit for Florida. But I think Florida, out of all of these schools, Lane Kiffin has what they're looking for the most. So I'm curious, as far as all of these teams throwing the kitchen sink at him, I think Florida will probably try to throw the entire kitchen, the entire house, whatever they need to, because I think he fits what they're looking for the most. You mentioned before an offensive head coach. This is what Florida needs right now, is an offensive-minded head coach. And right now he's proving to be one of, if not the best play callers in the country. You mentioned what he does in the portal and recruiting. Having Florida to your backyard, a state that is always 1, 2, or 3 when it comes to talent, year in and year out at the high school level, it's a major. This is a guy who's the portal king, but if he could parlay that with keeping kids in the state of Florida at the high school level in his backyard and putting them in his offensive scheme, I mean, it'd be huge. And you talk about the players even on their roster right now. If we're talking about short term, Florida, if you get a DJ Lagway to stay, you get a Jaden Baugh to stay, you get a Dallas Wilson, it's like their roster is already loaded and they're not hitting that potential. I think short term Lane Kiffin would get them hitting their stride immediately, even though some people might think in Ole Miss, obviously he's already established there, and LSU, they seem pretty ready to win right now. I think they could plug Lane Kiffin in right now, what they got going on, and they would see the benefits from it immediately. So I think he fits a lot what they're looking for. You know, Andy Staples has said they want a fiery head coach that wears a visor. He obviously fits that. He fits the offensive side of things. He is coached in the state of Florida previously in his career, so he has some ties there. The state of Florida speaks for itself, and I think we mentioned it before in our pre-show meeting. LSU, if you go to an LSU, you are the premier school in that state. A little bit more of a competition in Florida with Miami and Florida State, but I think if he shows up, he's immediately the best offensive mind in this state, and that alone is a recruiting tool I think would be huge for him. I mean, you can go play for Miami, you could play for Florida State, but I have guys in the league playing on Sundays at quarterback. We have 3 Heisman Trophy winners at quarterback at Florida. I think that fit offensively specifically, and him being kind of that guy in the state would just be huge for Florida, huge for the program. I think they want him more than any of these other programs.
In a weird way, I think Lane Kiffin would actually benefit from having Florida State and Miami around him, because he has proven if he has some ammo to troll somebody else, he uses that to then make his place look better. So you're telling me Lane Kiffin trolling Florida State wouldn't be something that boosts Florida?
Annually.
I mean, if he can troll Miami, if they end up being in that world, like it's going to be a thing where, yeah, you got to compete for them with recruits. But in a weird way, I think Lane Kiffin takes situations like that and takes opponents like that and uses them to his advantage in his own Lane Kiffin kind of way. I can just close my eyes and see this more clearly, Kato, which isn't really an analysis so much, and maybe it's because this job's been open longer and this Lane Kiffin LSU idea has existed since Sunday night. But for whatever reason, I feel like the personality of Florida and just what you said, what they're looking for, and maybe in a weird way even what Lane Kiffin's looking for, it feels like it aligns more with a Florida. You talk about his affinity for a one Steve Spurrier and how he, I believe the way that ESPN phrased it was how he idolized Spurrier or looked up to Spurrier when he was coming up the ranks. I think his wife has ties to the state of Florida. Him having coached in the state of Florida, there's a little bit more common denominator with Kiffin in Florida that makes sense to me. That's just how I feel about this. I think LSU is maybe a better job, a better situation, but that roster, if he can keep Dallas Wilson dial-up winners for him, if we got Trinidad Chambliss spinning it right now from the D2 ranks, I don't know if Lagway's his quarterback next year if he goes to Gainesville, just by nature of I don't know if Lagway's, this is maybe a touch disrespectful, I don't know if Lagway has played well enough at this point to like solidify himself as a starting quarterback next year if Kiffin comes in and wants to bring his own guy. Food for thought. It'd be a monster. It would be a monster. And maybe it's not the first year, but all the ingredients are there at Florida for him to win at the highest level. Like you can see it maybe more clearly at LSU because more guys have done it more recently. But again, we're not talking about something that's like this unscalable wall. If you gave Kiffin the resources at Florida, that logo, the ability to recruit via the portal there, the high school, like he would win at Florida. I guess is my point. He would win at the highest level at Florida, and that doesn't feel like it's reaching at all to say that.
Yeah, a couple. You said a lot of great things there. One, Lagway did say he's Florida through and through, so we'll see if he's a man of his word. We'll see if Lagway does it. But two, I love the idea of the mutualism that would kind of exist in the state of Florida if Lane was there. Like, I think the rivalries would only go up and up because you have to think about it. When Lane goes to Ole Miss, he's kind of picking fights and like starting his own rivalries on Twitter, and because Ole Miss, like, they have the Egg Bowl at the end of the year, they have Magnolia Bowl, whatever you like, they have their old historic SEC rivalries. But he reignited a lot of those with some of the off the field chatter. I mean, Oklahoma this week, he's talking about Venables and the Signals. That's before the week. After, he's talking to David Stone after the game, coming right after Brian Kelly. What a funny turn of events, by the way.
Murdered him.
If Juice Kiffin's burner was already active in the SEC where Ole Miss is out here picking fights, imagine in-state we'd get annual posts for the Miami and Florida State game. It would be so good for college football. It'd be crazy to say this would be the best for college football if he went there, but I think just from a state of Florida in general, those schools all trying to come back and establish themselves as the top dog in the state, I think Lane would kind of make it all rise to the top, and it'd be great for the game. There was one other thing you said that I hung on to.
Dallas Wilson. Is what I can't get in my
that would be
closing my eyes and seeing Kiffin is, I guess, one thing I want to get your take on. It feels like it makes the most sense.
Yeah, it does, and I think that's what it was. It's really about what he wants. Like you watch the Lane Kiffin documentary, and this will probably go smoothly right into our Ole Miss transition here. It depends on what he wants because he has been all over the place, and it seemed at the end of that documentary he wanted to be at Ole Miss to kind of do his own thing and establish his own way. But man, what a challenge, a fun and exciting challenge it would be to go to a place like Florida that seems like it's been a sleeping giant for a very long time and reactivate that. I mean, the only thing more impressive than that is if he just went on an unreal run with Ole Miss this year, went to the national championship, went to the SEC title game, won some games in the postseason. That would be an accomplishment within itself. And I almost think if he did achieve that, say he takes an SEC title back to Oxford, say he wins a couple playoff games, God forbid, wins a national championship. I mean, I think at that point you've accomplished everything you could at Ole Miss, and going off into the sunset at Florida might be a little bit easier to do.
Dude, the way you said this too about Brian Kelly, the way he was trolling Brian Kelly in the SEC, he obliterated Brian Kelly. I feel like more than once on social media, making fun of his TikToks and whatnot. Neither here nor there. But to your point of him creating rivalries, imagine Kiffin trolling Cristobal, and I don't know who the head coach of Florida State is going to be. Maybe it's James Franklin. Kiffin, Franklin, and Cristobal in the same state. Are you joking me? I think it'd be social media gold, but
would be insane.
That is what it is. Ole Miss, the current job for Lane Kiffin. I said it before. I don't know why you would leave Ole Miss. Now, we'll both go to our, if we were Lane Kiffin, here's what we would do, take here in a second. But Andy Staples put out an article on Saturday after they beat Oklahoma. And you're like, okay, so Ole Miss is probably making the playoff. Okay, well, last year was supposed to be the year you didn't make the playoff. So this year's team is of a, quote unquote, lesser caliber talent-wise, and you're making the playoff, and you feel like you have a chance to go win a national title. If that's the ceiling, Florida's ceiling can only be as high as Ole Miss's. It can't be higher than winning a national championship. Same thing with LSU. Your ceiling can't be higher than winning a national championship. So if you're already doing that, why would you leave Ole Miss? The answer, I think a lot of people would say, is twofold. One, logo. JD, you walk into a high school, you have the LSU logo, that Florida logo. It probably has a little bit more juice to it than the Ole Miss logo, which maybe it's an opinion, but I think that's probably fair to say. Second part of that is resources. And this is where the conversation gets nuanced here, Kato. If I'm Lane Kiffin and I'm going to stay at Ole Miss, I tell the powers that be in Oxford, we are not doing window years here anymore. If I'm staying here and you believe, you being the people at Ole Miss, this job is as good as the jobs I'm turning down in LSU and Florida, you make sure I have everything that I need every single year. Not every other year, not every 3 years. We're never saying, oh, we're all in this year at Ole Miss. We are all in every year because I have proven if you give me what I need, I can get you to the college football playoff. I'm speaking a little bit there futuristically with what they're looking like they're going to do this year, but like it feels very much so teed up for that. So if I'm Kiffin, I am making my demands. I'm saying I want to be here. My daughter's here. I want to be here, but you got to make it worth my while because those places will give me all I need to go win. But he's embraced. He's empowered there. I appreciate that Ole Miss has embraced the Kiffin experience. He's tweeting how he wants to tweet, and Ole Miss is running with it. I think Ole Miss makes a lot of sense from that point of view. Why would you leave if you're Lane Kiffin? Why would you leave?
No, it's a great point, and I think you talk about the logos of the schools. Lane Kiffin is the logo for Ole Miss. Like Kurt Cignetti is the logo for Indiana. Like coaches have proven in this modern era, you can make the most of your situation and put your school on the map in no time. And Lane has been working at it for a while and has gotten to the point. He's putting several quarterbacks into the NFL. He's done it his own way, and he can continue to do it his own way at Ole Miss. But that has now also earned him the opportunity to do it his own way at programs that don't always have that. Like it's you can't do it your own way at LSU, like you mentioned. You have to kind of fit the mold of what they're looking for and please your fans both on and off the field. And I think Lane's now earned that right. But you mentioned it. I think he can squeeze everything out of Ole Miss possible. He's already done that, and I think he could double down by staying. I mean, this is a guy who we'll see how far he gets him into the playoff this year. We'll see what they do in the SEC title game. But after this, with all these suitors coming after him, you could sit down and have a really serious conversation with the higher-ups at Ole Miss about who they want to be and what they want to be. Because if he wants to stay at Ole Miss, he can definitely activate them in a way that they haven't before that can be even higher up than now. He's doing great in the portal. We know those guys aren't free. They're not just coming to Ole Miss on no kind of NIL money, but they can double down there. They could up their resources even more. Hit up Eli Manning, see what he's doing. What's A.J. Brown doing? They could really lean into this even more and keep riding this wave of success that Lane's had. And I keep referencing the documentary, but it's very clear he loves it there, loves his hot yoga routine, loves having his daughter there. He loves Ole Miss. They've embraced him. It'd be cool to see him embrace them back by saying no to all these really irresistible offers, if we're just being honest, that he's going to have as far as financially and the brand power of this. But, man, it'd be really cool for college football if he stayed. It'd be really cool if he went. But it's more about, I think, the heart wanting what it wants. And if I'd be interested to see kind of Ole Miss, how they finish the season, if that impacts at all. If there's any moments where we're like, okay, like, since they won this or since they lost that game, like that means he's staying at Ole Miss or that means he's probably going to go.
Mm-hmm. And it's almost making the Eli Drinkwitz angle a little bit more intriguing with Bo Prabula looks like he's going to miss some time. They just got their second loss. They lose another game. They're
Matt Rule's name is in some of these rumors, and next thing you know, they're losing to Minnesota. Like, if he can keep his eye on the ball here, it could really make him him and this team really lock in even more on the task at hand, get more out of themselves. And he's like, man, I don't need to go. Like, I can, if we focus and try to block out noise to end this season and really have one of the better Ole Miss seasons we've had of all time, and I built it brick by brick by myself, doing it my own way, why would I start over somewhere else against teams that I'm going to beat? Like, they're about to play Florida, like and that might be the interesting kind of sliding doors moment where we see it, because that'll just be an interesting environment. But yeah, man, it'd be cool if he stayed just because he built this by himself. But at the end of the Lane Kiffin documentary, I couldn't tell if he's just gonna go out in the sunset and be Ole Miss forever, go for the statue outside the stadium, or if there's more chapters to be attained here, and if he wants to get back to that spot where he does care if it's the Oakland Raiders or if it's USC, if it's Tennessee, he does care about those brands. I'm curious if he still has that kind of in him, because it seems like he's a little bit more detached from the brand names and being the young hotshot. He's just come such a long way.
If I'm Ole Miss, I'm saying, hey, Kiffin, whatever you need. I don't have any cash on me. That's just how I'm living right now. It's your boy's down bad. But if I'm Ole Miss, I'm taking my proverbial cash, throwing it at Kiffin and saying, whatever you need. One more thought I want to get to here before we give our unsolicited advice to Lane Kiffin as to what he should do. We keep going back to the documentary because it was so revealing, and you don't really get much from Lane Kiffin in press conferences. He doesn't do really any one-on-one interviews. Trust me, we've tried. He said something in the documentary that I thought was revealing, where he was speaking to how he used to approach coaching and his ambitions, and he kept saying, I want a statue. I want to be the youngest to do this, that, and the other. And he's since backed off that a little bit. But if you want to get a statue in front of the stadium, there's two places. One is Florida. If you want to bring that place back to where it's been and go win a national title, you're at, I think, statue territory. Are you not already in statue territory at Ole Miss? You're going to make the playoff this year. Is that not already like somewhat flirting with statue territory? I think it is, personally. And I think if that still matters to him, the Ole Miss angle is intriguing. So, Kato, for my money, I wouldn't try to be happier than happy. I'd say give me what I need here at Ole Miss. And if you're assuming you do that now, if you're Ole Miss, if you're smart about it, you give Lane Kiffin what he needs. He's earned it. And say, we're winning right now. Why would I leave? We're beating these teams that we're going to end up having to play down the stretch here. With Florida at least being one of those teams, if LSU played Ole Miss tomorrow, Ole Miss probably be a double-digit point favorite given what's going on there in Baton Rouge. Ole Miss is rolling, and it's because Kiffin's built it, and I don't think there's any reason to leave at this point in time. Outside of wanting to go put your daughter's boyfriend in Win Weeks through conditioning and just make him have a difficult life in general during fall camp, outside of that, I would just make sure I give him a difficult time in general on the field, and Ole Miss keep rolling with Kiffin. I keep saying LSU and Ole Miss if they were to play here in the future. Ole Miss already beat LSU this year. Just to have that on record. So it is what it is. What are you doing if you're Lane Kiffin, Kato? What's the final decision here for you between these three options? To be clear, I want your decision to be Lane's decision. I think it'd be really cool if he stayed at Ole Miss. I think the success of this season is going to have a lot to do with it. But at the same time, they're successful with a D2 backup quarterback right now. So you can still argue that they're still not even scratching the surface of what they could be if Lane stays. I think it'd be cool if all of these SEC vacancies had to be filled by someone else, and they have to take the belt from Lane. Like he has his territory. He has the head start and the jump on all these schools. If I was Lane, though, as appealing as the food and the cuisine is in Louisiana, I think I would take my talents to Florida, man. I think that I'm not going to say you've done all you could at Ole Miss, but you're starting to get closer to that ceiling. And I think that if you go to Florida with the infrastructure within that state, I think with the quarterback position and the attractiveness of getting some of just the best talent you could, I think Florida, if I'm a Lane Kiffin and I'm thinking about my offense and how I want to build that up and how I want to operate and do what I'm doing at Ole Miss at a larger scale, I think it's the best fit. And I would go to the Swamp. I think just the resources in your backyard as far as players, the resources in providing for a program that's hungry for it. I think LSU almost having their national title a little bit more recently, if I'm in the mindset of a Lane Kiffin, I would like to bring Florida back. I think making Ole Miss your own thing, lifting that up, reaching the ceiling of that probably this year. I mean, if they win any postseason games, I think I've almost maxed out the potential of Ole Miss. If I'm Lane, I'm going to Florida, and I'm going to try to bring a old program that has been in previous glory, bring them back. I think that's statue material for sure if you can do that. It'd be wild, dude. To arm him with the brand power and the resources of the team in the most talent-rich state from a high school recruiting perspective, and the conference with the most draft picks would be dangerous. Either way, it's going to be a phenomenal story regardless, but either one of those I think I'm very okay with happening. And Cannot wait to see how it unfolds. Kato, good stuff as always, man.
Sidebar, I'm hiring
Please.
Tim Tebow as well if I'm Lane Kiffin. That's one of my first orders of business. I know I had the celebrity head coach theory, and I said Tim Tebow will be the head coach of Florida one day. If Lane comes in, bring Tim in there, man. Have Tim in people's living rooms recruiting. Have him speak before the team, before a game, and fire them up. Like I think everything Lane does, down to his Twitter, down to his offense, every detail, I think just would work even more at Florida. Like I think it would just supercharge what he's got going on, and that's why it's my pick. So those are my parting words.
Turn it up. Lane Kiffin, head coach, team chaplain potentially.
Tim Tebow. General manager, Tim Tebow. You can't rule anything out, man, with Lane. I think the Lane train going to Gainesville would be quite electric, and that's what I would do if I was Lane.
Here we go, man. Here we go. Coach Kiffin, you have our input here. Feel free to use it as you see fit. But regardless, like we said before, dude is getting paid